And when you do that, oftentimes what happens is you make mistakes. There are a lot of scopes for alignment issues or things not to go perfect, but those are lessons you learn quickly. It allows you to try things and learn from them. What works well, what doesn't work well. I would say there were certain new things that we tried that worked very well. And that's something we're going to build on. And there were certain things that we'd say, okay, maybe that was not worth pursuing our energy and time. And that's a good opportunity just to keep pivot.
Okay, hello, we're rolling. Good evening, good day, welcome back to another Bayla podcast. We have not been active for some time, so we decided we should keep things rolling. And I have with me today my guest, Mr. Asad Sattar.
Yes,
How are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Good to have you. Asad, do you want to give an introduction? I don't want to go through tomorrow company. How long has it been that you've been here with us? And also quick announcement, Asad is the latest director of Bayla, so we welcome you on the board as well. And we're
really excited, really proud to be here.
And we're really happy to have you on board with us. So please, to our introduction, Asad.
So I'm Asad Sattar. I joined my family business in governance about 9 years ago. It's Utah Group. It's a company that has been there since 1984. I also founded my own company. It's called Arka, and we specialize in the fashion industry, and we provide a platform for fashion weeks as well as e-com for multi-brand retailers to be able to sell their products in a democratized way.
Okay. So, formality শেষ এখন Arka, why? মাথায় কোত্থেকে আসে? Where did this, what is the birth of this, and why did you choose this route while you've been in RMG? You say however you like.
So, I think it was during COVID, initially, the first idea was about getting into retail because there are certain limitations with the garment industry that's outside of our control. In the sense that we're dependent on international events, we're dependent on politics, we're dependent on infrastructure. There are a lot of things we can't control. And there are also always internal factors as well. So I had this idea that retail is something that's growing really fast, but there was always the problem that it's very competitive and a lot of the big retail players are backed by giants who, let's just say, they don't need to turn a profit to be able to grow or sustain themselves. So I wanted to start a brand of my own. And my idea was that if I start a brand, the kind of brand that I want, it doesn't really fit into the current cultural ecosystem. So for me, the concept was that we should first create an ecosystem that can sustain these brands and also be a platform for other young designers, other entrepreneurs that can launch their brands and have a platform to build on. So they can actually compete with the bigger ones. Even playing field.
And it's been a huge success.
I think it started really strongly. That's a
great response.
Right. I would say that's a good testament to the fact that there was a big opportunity like this. We were able to take that, hit it. But I think there's so much more still yet to come for us to do.
And I went myself this year and I had a great time. And turnout was what impressed me very much. But the most important thing is I have not seen events like this before happening in Bangladesh, number one. And also at the same time, the progressive attitude and, just the allowing for all these other brands that or companies that we've never heard of to give them a platform to express and showcase whatever they have. That was fantastic. And to do it successfully, that's a big thing. You can't just have a fashion week and bring in an audience and, make it grow and reach out like that. So that's absolutely brilliant. Lessons that you have learned after handling it. This was your second one, yes?
Second one.
Please be brutally honest.
The first event, people are very forgiving because there are no expectations. So when we did the first event, there were a lot of things that were not perfect about it. But people didn't see that. And it was a huge success. People had such a great time. The first one was amazing. The second event, we went for something much bigger. We wanted to take that initial proto idea. It was a concept event, the first one. We wanted to expand it up. We wanted to see how far we can push the realization of it. And there's one culture and ethos that we have, which is that we love to experiment. We love to try new things. And we like to take calculated risks. And when you do that, oftentimes what happens is you make mistakes. There are a lot of scopes for alignment issues or things not to go perfect, but those are lessons you learn quickly.
Yeah.
It allows you to try things and learn from them. What works well, what doesn't work well. I would say there were certain new things that we tried that worked very well.
Yeah.
And that's something we're going to build on. And there were certain things that we'd say, okay, maybe that was not worth pursuing our energy and time.
Yeah.
And that's a good opportunity just to pivot before the next event. But in terms of what we wanted to achieve this event, I would say we were completely successful because our main objectives was to, number one, grow out the platform.
Yeah.
Number two was to get a bit more mainstream kind of appeal. And the third one was also that we wanted to kind of set ourselves in with not just Gen Z generation, but also kind of a larger pool and a larger platform. And I think that was a good stepping stone for us.
Super. And we are expecting more events in 2025?
2025, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, I wish you guys all the best with it because I'll be looking forward to it. And if it's anything like the one that I've seen this year, I will most definitely be attending. And I would encourage people to go check it out themselves as well because it is a fantastic thing that you guys have done. I am so glad because I never imagined Bangladesh I would be seeing events like this, you know. Speaking of which, speaking of fashion shows, you had an interesting story for me about fashion shows. Would you care to share a little bit? It's part of the experience of dealing with making an event, organizing an event, and
so like in terms of like challenges, right? When you come into an industry, especially as someone who's a complete outsider, because when I first had this idea, obviously we've come from a garments background. We're in the apparel industry. Fashion is a completely separate industry. There's no overlap between the fashion industry in Bangladesh and the garment industry in Bangladesh. And there's certain incumbents, certain brands, certain companies, certain organizations. And it was quite challenging because as I was trying to launch a first event, it got to a point where we were getting kind of restrictions, kind of getting calls, kind of getting almost harassment in a certain sense about should we be doing a fashion week? Maybe we can't do it because there's certain incumbents who've been doing this for a while.
Right.
And it was even in a certain sense that we shouldn't use the word fashion week, which is absurd because it's a generic name. Just like you might call your place a restaurant or a bistro, or apparel at the end of your company name. It was suggested that Fashion Week is owned by another entity, which is absurd.
The term Fashion Week.
Yes.
Owned by another entity.
Yes, apparently. So
fantastic.
So there were a lot of like pressures. We were getting phone calls. We were getting letters.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we had excellent legal advice.
Yeah.
And we were assured that this is absolutely not the case. So, but it's just testament that it's a very difficult industry.
Yeah.
And I think what that means is there's a lot of opportunity for this industry to evolve,
right,
to grow. Because I would say the fashion industry in Bangladesh, they've done a lot. They've done so much for it. But I think we're entering a new era of the fashion industry in Bangladesh, which will be led by this younger generation of new talented designers who have tremendous creativity and have a lot of influence, not only from the local culture, but also from the international world that they see.
Fantastic. So one of the points that we decided we'd speak about was the fact of building more retail base and designer base in Bangladesh, because right now in RMG especially, our model is still very, I know there are very innovative factories out there, but innovative factories badeo, there are still companies যাদের বেসিক সেটআপ ইজ আমাদেরকে একটা ডকুমেন্ট টেক প্যাক পাঠানো হবে, এটা 50,000 পিস বানাতে হবে, এটা জাস্ট গিয়ে বানাও। I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, I think, but the fact remains যে এটাই আমাদের model. So to break out of that model and add value, you really think that designers they can involve kora at a factory sort of manufacturing level? And what about retail, the way you're thinking about retail and us getting into it?
Right.
Would you share your feedback on that?
Right. So like one of the first inception ideas for Arka Fashion Week was that we have this amazing infrastructure from garments.
Yeah.
We have the capability and the capacity to be something far greater, because if you look at China, for example, they work with very basic Chinese machines.
Yeah.
And they're exporting quality that is far greater than what we are creating. We're working with European machinery, we are creating products that doesn't align with the machinery.
Absolutely.
So either we should accept that we don't need to buy expensive machines and just make low-grade quality stuff.
Yep.
So we can keep some profit, or we can say, no, we should try to take the next step. So I like to think of it as a matrix of like value and effort. And what we are doing is a lot of basic garment factories, যারা just এরকম tech bag বানাচ্ছে, basic t-shirt বানাচ্ছে,
right,
for a very basic kind of a buyer in bulk. They're like putting in low effort. They're capturing low value as well.
Yes.
So I would say they're okay. They're at least on par.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest, I wouldn't say the word fool, but I would say we're getting taken advantage of in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Are the really high quality factories who are putting in a lot of effort into making really premium quality products, but they're not quite getting the value.
Correct.
That they should for that.
Correct.
So look at another country that is making high premium quality items. They're
Vietnam, or
for example.
Yeah.
Exactly. They are. So we're not. So my point is that even if you're making at home basic t-shirt, low value, that's a business case that might make sense.
Yeah.
But it's not, there's not much sense in the business that is putting so much effort and not getting this.
And you're talking about compliant factories, factories that have invested in European grade machinery.
Excellent buyers as well.
Yeah. So big names and big brands, etc., and all of that.
And these are factories that are better than the factories you'd see in Vietnam or China. So my point is the only way for us to really capture that value is if we stop thinking in terms of exporting $3 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And instead of just exporting sweat and labor, we should start thinking in terms of development, in terms of design, in terms of brands.
Okay.
And I think there's enough of a case for Bangladeshi garment or any designer, any brand to be able to go international because we have the infrastructure. And if you look at stuff like Shein, if you look at stuff like Urban Revival, they have been very successful in this model.
Right.
There's no reason why we can't do the same.
Right. Okay. And I completely agree with you on that, by the way, Jay. We need to have an evolution of this. In your experience in working so far from the R&D side of things, designing and fashion, baad diye jodi boli, when you struggle with getting the price for an item that you have, put in considerable amount, like specific dyeing techniques, the kind of things we're talking about, much better quality of knitting, different stuff, higher end stuff, better from all aspects, including better QC, better quality control, everything we like. How do you get the price from the customer when they are being difficult and they're comparing you with other factories? The pricing of So if you face such a situation, how do you tackle it? What's your view on it?
I think the best thing to do is, before we get to that situation, is to think of competitive advantages and USP from a very strategic level. So if you're going to compete in a product category that is very over competitive or something that doesn't have a competitive advantage, or
like white t-shirts.
White t-shirts.
Yeah.
Number one, why compete there?
Yes.
And I think the best way to gain entry into good buyers or to get good prices is to give a product that no one else can give. And that's either through specific machines or through specific design and research and development techniques.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you oftentimes can command a higher price for the basic products as well.
Right.
Once you're seen as a more strategic partner.
Okay. Excellent. I completely agree with you on that as well, because you're very right about us innovating and then tackling it from an earlier stage. সব কাজ করার পরে গিয়ে যদি বাইরেকে বলি যে এটার দাম এত এখন দিতে হবে, you might as well start it at the beginning and say, I read somewhere very recently, Jay, if you're talking to a low budget customer, the first topic of discussion has to be the price.
Right.
And this is I found a very good negotiation tactic, at least, Jay. Why waste time speaking more? If you're talking to a white t-shirt customer, and he's just looking to buy in volume, and you're operating as one of those factories, very likely you'll be beaten by generic marketed and we business model at John factory.
Or people who want to be a new entrant into that customer, right?
Yeah.
They're happy to kind of break the market just to get in.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our first podcast since the Shadinota event of Bangladesh, right? So we have achieved Shadinota, Asad, and you're my first guest in Shadin Bangladesh. So I welcome you again.
What a time to be alive.
Right? What a time to be alive. Now, we don't talk politics on this very much, so we're not going to talk politics. But one of our talking points is the macroeconomic situation of the industry, right? And how's it been for you guys as a company? also from the fashion perspective as well with Arka and everything, and from economic overview, and I'm talking with regards to business, with regards to business stability. We all know there's a lot of unrest going on in various places. A lot of things are not fully functional. Energy crisis, ongoing, blah, blah, blah. Inflation. A lot of things have happened. So your overview on this.
Right. I think it's a really, really difficult, challenging time. I think we often think in our heads about all the different challenges the garment industry has, could have, and somehow everything has fallen all at the same time. So the biggest issue right now, more than, the structural issues, the gas issues, is kind of this uncertainty as well, which is making it very difficult for people to plan, because no one can today say whether this energy crisis will continue for the next 6 months. Absolutely. Should companies take provisions to create an alternative source of energy? Should people be getting jute boilers? Is the uncertainty which often makes it impossible for business planning. Because I think that people are quite resilient. They find a way, even though they might suffer for a while, to overcome the challenges and hurdles. And as Bangladeshis, we've just gone through a revolution. We've proved our case of being resilient. I think certain certainty is very important. I think it's very important that we also pay close attention to the banking sector. How do we handle this issue of the dollar? How do you balance this delicate balance between the dollar rate and also inflation and interest rates? So it's quite challenging. I don't envy this government because they have an impossible job. But we have to hope for the best. And we have to hope that the first thing they can stabilize is the liquidity situation in these banking.
Absolutely. And from an RMG factory perspective, your buyers and your orders, everything is fine in that regard. And my personal problem, I've been very vocal even in the Bayla group about this energy crisis in terms of gas. Amar factory te kono gas nai, and I've been repeatedly vocal on it. I was on the people from Textiles Focus had come to see me one day, and the only thing I was being vocal about is just gas. I don't have gas. This has affected my business in an extremely negative manner. And I'm not alone in this. And this is not being solved, and it's massively impacting everyone. So from the factory side of things, buyers, orders, all of this, how's things from that end?
I think it's like the impossible challenge, right? Because on your end, you can take whatever precaution you want. If you're running a garment factory, you can run a diesel generator. You might lose out on your cost and you might make a loss in that month. But when it comes to gas and it comes to steam, like there's almost no alternative. There are very few alternatives, and capacity is an issue there. I think people have not been prepared for this. I think the last few years, the direction was a bit better. Things have been up and down in terms of gas, but all of a sudden it's quite a collapse of infrastructure is what you can call it. So it's impossible because, the textile industry runs on a 24-hour cycle. And unless you're running 24 hours, you don't make a profit. So if you take out, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day.
And it's significant like that.
And it's not
amount কম না
but ওরা যদি একটা প্ল্যানও করতো যে তোমাকে 8 ঘন্টা দিব, তোমাকে 8 ঘন্টা দিব, at least you could keep one shift off, not lose out on your overheads that way. But it seems like there's no sense of planning. There's no way to divide this gas up periodically throughout the day. So you can at least plan for it.
Absolutely. I have no certainty in the current situation either, so I can't make any predictions. আমি জানি না কোনটা কোন দিকে যাবে, honestly. এটা হচ্ছে কারণ my thoughts on it. So I'm gonna divert back towards retail and ask you about building a brand. You see, আমার সারা জীবন একটা ইচ্ছা ছিল যে I would have a brand that is backed by my factory, but brandটা আমাদের হবে, not manufacture for somebody else. But it's easier said than done, number one. So my question to you is in two parts. One হচ্ছে যে if I am to establish a brand, যেটা shop products আমি বানাবো, I'll be manufacturing everything. How do I establish it successfully abroad versus how do I establish it? And I want the synopsis. I know we can go talk about this for hours, right? But if I wanted to do it local, how are they both different? And I want you to tell me, কোনটার financial involvement কত? মানে figures না. What is the more expensive endeavor?
Right.
What can you manage? Is it something you can manage within 50 lakhs? Is it something you can manage? and so on and so forth. I am not familiar in this territory. Right. These are my questions to you.
I think anyone can start a brand.
Yeah.
Anyone can start. Depends how fast you want to grow. Depends what model you want. Whether you're going for high retail, high physical space, high growth, high volume, whether you want to be more niche and more curated. So I think identifying what your brand is, who's the target customer, how you want to grow, what kind of finances you have. But I would say, it's kind of ironic to think about it, but if you do it in Bangladesh, there aren't different companies or agencies to really help you that well. You might end up having to produce and do a lot of things yourself. But I would say if you want to go international, there are a lot of different companies there. There are wholesalers, there are retailers. Instead of you thinking about doing the actual distribution, you can still be a manufacturer.
Yeah.
But instead of selling to a buyer, you can sell your brand to a retailer as well. So I think that's the best pivot for garment companies. You should say, Ami amar design ta niye, Ami amar eta label dibo, I'll market that well, and I'll go B2B. I'll go to a retailer and I'll ask them put my label, my private label, into their stores.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? That's a brilliant thing you said, and I completely agree. You go to the retailers, right? Let's say someone watching here, Amar kono ekta friend in Bayla, she's a garment owner. He has come up with 3 styles under his brand, whatever the brand is. Let's call it Logos. He calls it Logos. Okay, a banana brand. ও এখন কি করবে next? ও কি একটা প্লেনে করে উঠে একটা retailer office এ যাবে at a country, America or somewhere in Europe or whatever? Or steps গুলা কি? মানে in the most simplified manner. If you were to do it yourself even.
Right.
With your brand. জানো এটা নিয়ে একটা retailer কাছে দিব. What is the path for this?
It's much easier for companies who are already working with big department retailers. Like if you're working with Walmart, Target, Ross, TJ Maxx,
you can just sell it to
Nordstrom. You have a relationship with them. They know you. It's much easier to communicate. And the advantage you get with them is that you're giving your product. They're doing most of the after sales. And, once your label gets recognition, you can always go D2C as well. You can always become that retailer yourself. There's no limitations.
Okay, so D2C কেমনে করে? Let's say you have all the backing, but you want to sell directly to the customers now. মানুষ তোমার ওয়েবসাইটে গিয়ে order দিবে. That means তোমার বাইরে একটা warehouse লাগবে.
I mean, there are companies in the US, for example, or in Europe. They handle your warehousing. They handle last.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
They handle deliveries. They handle marketing. So I think there are different ways to do it depending on how you want to invest.
Right.
But like if you're someone who is more expertise in manufacturing and we don't quite understand the after sales, why do it yourself? Why not rely, at least initially, till you get to a certain place on external parties who are specialized in this?
Right. And profitability is that much better than working for just buyers and making export?
I mean, I would say if you're doing a private label, there's definitely more growth because even if the brand, even if the retailer is paying you the same price as what they would pay for a t-shirt with Target written on it versus putting out a private label.
Yes.
You're building brand equity, right?
Yes.
And I think retail is not a game about profit necessarily because margins are really, really slim in the apparel industry, even in the retail side. But I think it's about building brand equity and that brand has value. And that same game is what we play in the garment industry. Garments is not a cash flow positive business, or it's not greatly a cash flow positive
Not
business.
greatly, no.
Not like it once was, but I think it's about building equity. And all of a sudden garments, you can do 10, 50, $100 million in yearly revenue really easy. And that is worth something in the operations and equity.
Okay, so let's talk local. One of our mutually known people, Mr. Sharai Chaudhary, has Noir established, and he's been in the game for a while.
Right.
I always appreciate that brand. I don't think I've asked him this question, but for me, with you and your current experience with Arka Fashion Week and working with so many different brands, etc., small, big, medium, shop milajila, everything combined. Locally একটা brand বানায় successful করে বাংলাদেশের মানুষকে তোমার কাপড় পরানো, you want to be in the next noteworthy brand. What's the procedure for someone who has a factory, let's say, even a smaller organization, but যার factoryও নাই, but করতে চাই? What kind of money are we talking? Because money is important, right? What kind of money are we talking? What kind of effort are we talking?
Right.
Difficulty, right?
I think Right is a really good example because he has 2 retail brands, right? One is Noor, which has been super successful in Bangladesh. I think they're a very good example of how Bangladeshi apparel brands can create a good reputation in the market and get to a good sales point.
Yeah.
And he's also done Miniso, which is again at international level.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miniso also for partnering with Arka. They were super supportive. But I think, again, the way the traditional retail models have operated in Bangladesh is usually they throw a lot of money behind the product, behind the concept, and they want to scale really fast. And I think it can be hit or miss, but in the long run, I think as long as you can get to a point of scalability and you have a good product with a good consumer base, it will be profitable in the long run. And you're always living off that equity value that you have generated. So I think it will be very difficult for a smart, successful garment company to not do well in this field. Because
I agree. You should.
Things are growing so fast. And I don't think all the garment companies necessarily need to do it alone. I think they should consider partnerships. They should consider expertise. And bringing on other people who are maybe more skilled in certain areas. That might be distribution, that might be marketing, that might be design. Bangladesh, in the garment industry, it's almost like people are ashamed of outsourcing. It's like, show me to core garment. I want to be fully vertical.
No brand ever works that way.
Buying paper and making cartons as well. I think understanding where your expertise are, how to scale that fast.
No, absolutely fair enough. And we're going to wrap up soon. But before I do that, let's talk about the non-garment company and just like the individual, like a brand build করতে চাই বাংলাদেশ সবার তো factory. Not everybody has the backing has, or you have, or I have, and we're very fortunate people and grateful every day. But the person who doesn't have it, how do they establish it?
So there are a lot of challenges in this, because when you first start, you need places where you can jump onto platforms, and this is one of the inceptions of Arka itself,
like tagging on.
Like if you have a platform where you can, let's say, launch a brand, like Amra Arkate Boli, like is the best place for a young entrepreneur or designer to launch their brand. Because they can create something small, they can bring it to Arka, they can come to a place where all fashion enthusiasts and people are coming in one place. And all of a sudden you can get a lot of attention in a very short amount of time. And that can kind of be like a launch pad. So we say that Arka is a very good place to launch your product. It's a very good launching pad, whether it's a beauty product, whether it's a retail product, whether it's a more high-end designer products. But these challenges are always there. It's always difficult to start a brand. You always do need some investment initially. When Arka was started, the first event, it was a massive risk, massive investment that we put into it. The second event we did, it was still a massive investment that we put into it. And very openly speaking, it's still not something that is in the green. It's still something that we're investing into. Obviously, in the long run, we think that it can grow into something bigger.
Absolutely.
But initially, our concept is that we just want to be a platform that is allowing designers, brands, retailers to come in, piggy bank on it together for common equity. And in the long run, I think that will be something that's very positive. And that's hopefully in the long run, it can also become a more sustainable model, because obviously investing into something this big year in, year out for me. I'm self-financed. Started Arka self-financed. People think,
where anyone wants to be a prospective sponsor in upcoming events and they're looking for some hype and some feedback and some gatherings. He's the guy. I mean, honestly, I wish you all the best with it, Asad, honestly. And the answer to my question was basically Tala Arka, naki. I like it.
Arka is the best place to launch your product. It's the best place to start your brand. And hopefully, if you have the right ideas, people will recognize that and you'll be flying in no time.
And we wish you all the best with it. And Asad, thank you for taking the time out to be here with us.
And thank you for doing this. These are the kind of platforms that we need as well.
Very grateful.
Stories. So we're very grateful.
Thank you for saying that. Very grateful. And we hope we'll continue the podcasts in coming days and bring on more guests. We have some more directors on board with us, some changes happening, some more news coming. So all will be told soon. Wish everybody a good day wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.